Hi everyone, it's Adrian here. It is time for this afternoon's guest webinar. So I'll shortly be introducing my colleague James Whatmore from Ciphr, and you can see from my screen today's session is all going to be focused on integrated HR and recruitment systems and why they're particularly important for candidate experience. We'd love questions to come along as you think of them on this session. I know James is probably going to run through them at the end with me, so ask the questions as you go. I'll be on the instant messenger chat to sort of help with if anyone's got any technical issues or any other questions about the notes or anything else that I can answer myself. But post the questions as we go, and we'll cover them at the end. I know James has also got a couple of polls, so there's a chance for you to engage. And yeah, we should have a good session. So let me just introduce James and I'll give you the control. James, can you hear me okay? Are you there?
I can indeed, yes, thank you. That's great. Thank you very much. So hello to everyone that's listening today. So thank you very much for your time. So today's webinar, as Adrian mentioned, is going to be why integrated HR and recruitment systems are essential for a brilliant candidate experience. So my name is James Whatmore. And I'm one of Ciphr's business development managers. And for those of you that don't know much about Ciphr, we are a leading provider of HR recruitment and learning software that helps organisations to attract, engage and retain their workforces more effectively. So the solutions that we provide really follow that employee life cycle from attraction and recruitment through to engagement, development, reward and retention. So for anyone that would like to find out any more info about Ciphr, you can contact us using the email address in the corner there. I think you can opt in at the end of the survey to hear more about us at that point. Okay, fab. So the agenda for today then is going to start with candidate experience, engagement and the difference technology can make. And then we're going to move on to the value of great onboarding, followed by engaging managers with hiring and the value of integrated systems. Okay, so the first thing to look at then is candidate experience and candidate engagement. So just really to sort of define what each of these are. So the candidate experience really is, I guess, the moment a candidate comes across your brand and encompasses everything up until the final job offer or rejection letter. So it's all about the communication that you have with candidates throughout the recruitment process that really enforces that second bit, which is candidate engagement. So I think it's really important to talk through each point and I guess to consider what the impacts of a poor engagement and experience could be, and also the types of things we could probably perhaps start to think about changing or doing a bit more of to improve the way that we manage both of these things within our own recruitment process. So before I go into that, I think it's probably important to talk about one of the key reasons why this is such a big focus. So if we look at the last few years, the recruitment market has changed significantly, and that's due to a range of factors, from sort of the recession all the way to where we are now with sort of Brexit. So if we go back to the recession, we saw the unemployment rate rocket to about 8.5%. So there was an increase in unemployment, but we also saw lots of redundancies, and we started to see more candidates searching for new positions because they felt at risk within their current employment. So all of this kind of made it really easy for us to find the right candidates and to fill positions quickly. So I guess in a way we're kind of a bit sport for choice, but if we fast forward to where we are now, so as the economy started to recover, the labour market stabilised, and obviously we're now here with Brexit, there are fewer candidates wanting to change jobs due to that uncertainty of Brexit. I guess that's a separate topic. And as a result, for the same reason, less international candidates. And we're working with an unemployment rate now of about 4.5%, so it's a lot lower. And I think it's because of all of this that we're now sort of in a position where it's a candidate-driven market, which just simply means that there's less candidates, making it harder for us to fill our positions. So it is very competitive. It's a really competitive market, and I think that's why it's so important to look at, I guess, ways to improve and streamline your recruitment process. And I think reviewing how you engage with candidates and what their experience is like during your recruitment process is a really great place to start. And just for the simple reason that it could literally be the difference between hiring, that perfect candidate or losing them to a competitor. Okay, so if we sort of delve into that a bit more, so again, the candidate experience to kick off with is that sort of starting point when a candidate comes across the brand, and then encompasses everything up until the final sort of stages of the recruitment process, being the job offer or the rejection letter. So I don't want to spend too much time on sort of advertising vacancies, but I think the default position when you do start to post your adverts is to make sure that you populate all of your social media accounts as well as your own careers page. There are lots of job boards out there, and with a bit of research you can find out sort of which ones will be best suited for you. But I think that's probably the sort of starting point. So imagine you are an applicant, you have ended up on your company's careers page. With that in mind, looking at your careers page now, do you think it best represents your brand? Is it engaging? Does it show your organisation's culture and values? So before any sort of presentation that I give, I always look at the careers page of the company that I'm presenting to, because it gives me the same experience and first impressions that their applicants get. And I think as it is such an important sort of competitive market now, we need to start thinking about what we can do to kind of stand out. So Adrian, we've got the first poll that I want to just launch, which is just a simple question to ask you if you think your current careers page reflects your brand. And the options that we have is yes, 100%, no, not really, or the final answer is no, it's a shocker. So just the careers page. So it'd be quite interesting to see, I guess, what your thoughts are with this. So we'll give it a few seconds while we wait for the results of the poll to come through. So
I can see people voting.
Yeah, we are indeed. So we've got.
So we'll give it a count. Should we give it a countdown, James? We'll give it
sure.
Like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Brilliant. Everyone's going to vote. People are still voting. I'll close that. And do you want me to share that so everyone can see it?
Yeah, please do. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, there you go.
So as everyone can see then, so that's quite good. So we've got 64% that say yes, they feel the careers page reflects the brand, which is great. And 36% that feel that it probably could be a bit better. So that's quite interesting. So I guess that kind of leads us on to the next slide, which is an exercise that I would sort of challenge anyone listening to sort of do following this. And that's to, I guess, visit your own careers page and maybe just go through the same experience, the same process that your applicants do. Have a look around, apply for a job and see sort of what that looks like. But then the second thing I'd challenge you to do is think about some of your main competitors and maybe visit their websites, look at their careers page and see what they're doing. And ultimately, do you stand out? Are you doing something different? Okay, so let's think about small changes that we could make to improve this then. So if we look at the careers page itself, the layout is quite an important thing. So is it easy to navigate around your careers page, especially if you've got multiple brands, if you're advertising across different locations, there's loads of different job categories. So making it really easy for someone to be able to search jobs maybe rather than big scroll down lists. These sort of simple things to support a better layout. Videos, I think, is a really great thing that we're seeing more of. So it could be creating videos to talk about your organisation and what you do. It could be testimonials, maybe from employees and clients, a walkthrough of the workplace. That's another one that I'm seeing more and more of. But even things like social events, I think videos are a real great way of kind of showing off your company's culture. It's a really engaging thing for someone to sort of sit and watch when they visit your careers page. It could be benefits and rewards. So do you promote things like flexi working? Have you got any sort of benefit packages, incentives and so on? Meet the team. Again, see more of this. So maybe pictures of potential colleagues, sort of management with a short bio, maybe hobbies and interests. And again, it's looking at kind of making that personal sort of side of the organisation come forward, and especially if you've got things like interviews or new starters, it takes that anxiety out of that process. Events, another good one. So again, that social side, have you got any events happening in the office, outside of the office, just communicating that culture. Mobile friendly is a big one, and we've got some stats in a moment that we'll look at with that. But I think that accessibility for applicants when they're actually on your website, making it really easy for them to navigate around your careers page on a mobile phone, but also can they apply through their mobile phone as well. And that obviously brings us to the application process, which is also quite important. So how easy is it for an applicant to complete an application form? How long is your application form? Are your job descriptions nice and clear? Again, is it mobile friendly? Can applicants kind of save their progress halfway through? So that sort of process itself, just small changes can make sort of a big difference. Okay, so if we start to think about what candidates want, so we've got a couple of stats here which are quite interesting. So over 45 questions within an application form reduces the amount of applications by about 90%, so that's pretty significant. So you do come across them now and again where they're quite lengthy, and if you do have sort of application forms that are quite long, I'll definitely say think about shortening them down. Just on those stats alone, that's a pretty significant number. Even if you think about maybe tailoring your application forms that are a bit more relevant to each position, rather than having maybe one big generic one, could be a way of trying to reduce the number of questions that you're asking. Job descriptions, so this is another quick fix. So being a bit more informative with your job description, so between 700 and 1200 characters, get 30% more applications. So again, just a bit more information on the job itself is what people are after. And then that mobile friendly sort of mobile optimized careers page, 66% of job seekers would apply via mobile if it were more accessible. So that's quite a large number. So again, simple things that we can fix, but big results that can come as a result of that. Okay, so candidate engagement. So we very much see this being the communication you have with candidates through the recruitment process. So it's all about ensuring that they're kept in the loop at every stage of the process. And I guess the engagement that you're having with your candidates will contribute to their overall experience. So it is really important. And I think the main thing is if you're not engaging with your candidates, then you can kind of be rest assured that another company is. So again, it's that candidate-driven market, and it's trying to do as much as you can possibly do to improve that experience and that engagement. So why is it so important? So revisiting the stats that we looked at previously, the unemployment rate is around about 4.5%, which is the lowest it's been for quite a long time. So again, just stressing that it's a candidate-driven market. So what can we do to kind of stand out? I read a really, really great article by OnRec, which I thought was quite relevant because it splits the candidate engagement into kind of three areas. So you've got the people, which is those who own the recruitment process, as well as the target audience being the candidates themselves. Next up, you've got the process. So that's knowing how and when you intend to engage with your candidates. And then the third one is technology, which is, I guess, is going to support you to implement and execute your engagement strategy. Okay, so a few more stats for us to consider. So only 26% of employers actually tell candidates what stage of the recruitment process they're at, which is very, very low. And I think we can sort of be better at that. It's just that, I guess, common courtesy of updating candidates. And it could be that they've progressed quite far down the line with you and they've had an offer elsewhere, but if they know that they're coming to the end of your recruitment process as an example, and the decision is going to be made soon, it could be the difference between, again, losing a candidate or actually hiring sort of the right person. And then we've got more than 60% of job candidates will tell their friends and family about a negative candidate experience. That's quite a big one. And up to 35% will share details of their experience online. So again, just things to consider as the negative impact of a bad sort of candidate experience and engagement. Okay, so that brings us on to another exercise, and it's really about that engagement strategy. So just thinking about, do you actually have one? And if you don't, I'll definitely say it's worth considering putting one together. And the best way to do that is maybe look at what are the actual stages of your recruitment. So maybe building some sort of process map that represents sort of the starting point and the finish point from the moment you advertise to the moment you hire. And then think about, when do you actually want to communicate and engage with candidates and create that engagement strategy that almost sits on top of the stages of your recruitment. So I think that's a really sort of great exercise to do following this. And my kind of experience with this is that sometimes you'll go into an organisation and there's not actually a specific process for recruitment. Everything's dealt with manually. Hiring managers are doing different things, and again, it's that opportunity to really sort of centralise what you're doing and create more of a strategy around the engagement and experience piece. Okay. So how can you improve candidate engagement? So again, just really, really simple things. And again, technology will support you with this, and we'll come on to that in a moment. But just acknowledge the receipt of every completed application. I think that's a really important one. Sending regular updates maybe to update candidates where they're up to within your recruitment process. A really good one that I see more of is when you actually go to a careers page, it does actually list what the stages of an organisation's recruitment process is. So that, as well as these regular updates, is a great way to kind of communicate that to your candidates. Provide details of your hiring process, and then let candidates know if their application form has been rejected. Again, so another sort of key sort of acknowledgement during the recruitment process. Okay, so using technology to enhance both the experience and engagement. So there are some fantastic bits of kit out there that will make all of what we've discussed so far really easily achievable. So for me, the starting point is that technology will help you sort of centralise your recruitment process. And when you've got that, when you understand what your stages of your recruitment process are, and it's now a formal process, you've got your engagement sort of strategy on top of that, it gives you sort of full control and will help you to define what that recruitment process looks like. Automation is a huge one. So when we were looking at the previous slide with the ways that we can communicate with candidates, a lot of that can be automated and still personalised. So things like automated acknowledgement emails, rejection, when you change the status of candidates in your system, that could trigger an alert, which is the updating candidates where they're up to in the process. Things like the actual hiring process, interview schedules, again, we can automate so much of this. So it's that opportunity to do more, but without the workload that maybe you would have without sort of a system to support. In, I guess, most circumstances on the candidate attraction piece, you don't even need to actually replace your website, so it doesn't have to be a huge project. You can just consider revamping the careers page, and a lot of systems out there will have an integrated careers page that they can host for you, and that means that me as a candidate visiting your website would click on careers and it would open up this page that's branded the same as your website, but again, it'll be your new wonderful careers page that has lots of functionality to support everything we've discussed so far. Okay, and then last but not least, which is probably the big time saver if you don't have a system, is the applicant tracking software. So there's lots of functionality to support you in managing your applications, but I'll give you the concept for those that aren't familiar with it. The idea is that you would come to your applicant tracking software to post a job vacancy. Okay, and that process can be quite automated in itself. But then when you actually post an advert, it almost creates a separate area within the system to manage that specific job. And that's where all of your candidates will start filtering into. So if you are sort of currently using emails and sort of the dreaded spreadsheets to manage this, it's that idea that I can go to one place, I can have all of my jobs listed separately, and I know that candidates are starting to be collected across each job. And that is a huge time saver, which is the key here, to be quick and try and streamline your recruitment process. Okay. So this is the next poll. Adrian, if you could start this for me, that'd be great. It's the next poll that I want to run. And the question is, how do you engage with new hires before they start? So this is before day one. And the options that we've got is we send a welcome pack by post or email. It could be a phone call with HR or a line manager, invite to meet their new team in person. It could even be sort of an online welcome portal that you give them access to, or you might not do any of the above. So you can tick as many that apply to you, but it'd be quite interesting to see, I guess, what people's responses are. So I'm just watching the figures go up. So I guess on this, my experience while we're waiting for that poll to finish is typically it tends to be sort of a welcome pack through the post, and then the engagement normally is quite limited. It might be a phone call as well, but yeah, it tends to be quite limited. So we're trying to look at ways that we can keep that engagement going before, you know, a person's first day. So again, it's that transition from a candidate to an employee and making that as engaging as possible. So I think if we do a quick countdown to finish off the poll, so if we say 5, 4, it's pretty stable now, 3, 2, 1. So if we can close it off, Adrian, that'd be great. So I don't know if everyone can see that, but we've got quite...
They can now, James. Just shared it.
Great. So you can see there's a large percentage there, 81% post an email sort of welcome pack. Then we've got 43% a phone call, so that could be a combination of the two, a phone call with HR, the line manager, which is great. 10% invite new starters to meet their team in person, which is fantastic. That's really, really great. I think that's puts a lot of added value to that process for a new starter. And then we've got 33% offer an online welcome portal, which is brilliant. Really, really great stuff. And then just a small percentage that don't do anything. Okay. So very interesting. So that kind of moves us on to, I guess, the value of great onboarding. So there's kind of two phases of onboarding to consider. You've got pre-employment, which is everything until their first day, and then you've got their first day. So pre-employment could even be 4 or 5 weeks before someone's due to start. So it could be they're working their current notice. And so as mentioned, I think it's quite important, I guess, to engage with new starters during this process and really sort of make them feel part of the team before they have even started, I guess. So it allows new hires to get acquainted with the company before they're expected to do any work, and it's a chance for you to do some of that administrative stuff that you need to get out of the way. Just again to make employees sort of feel comfortable in the office. So one thing that's quite interesting there is we've got a third that actually have an online welcome portal. So for those that aren't familiar with this, the concept of an online welcome portal is when someone accepts an offer and you set them up on your HR system, the online welcome portal can give new starters access to a portal that's designed to engage. So you could have lots of content there, from videos, company history, timelines, meet the team, as well as the chance to collect some of the administration, collect some of the information that you need from your new starters. So things like bank details, confirm if we've got the right information that we took during the recruitment process. It could be view policies, sign your contract, all of those sort of things. That's a really, really great thing that we're seeing more of. Okay. Bridging the gap between the hiring process and being a proper employee. Again, it's all about creating that seamless process from recruitment to onboarding, and it's just another example how sort of integrated systems can support with that, because you've got the recruitment, the onboarding, the HR, that all comes together that makes that nice sort of seamless process. So I found this quite interesting, some of the stats here that we're going to read through now. So new employees are less productive, stressed, and feel disconnected from the rest of their team and are likely to look for work elsewhere. So that's, I guess, as a result of unsuccessful onboarding. And I think many organisations drastically underestimate the importance of this when they do hire new employees. And if we look at sort of percentages, we've got 22% of companies have no formal onboarding program at all, or about half have only got a partially successful process. So on that poll, it was quite interesting that we've got a large number that obviously provide a welcome pack via the post or email, and obviously coupled maybe with a call from a HR representative or line manager, but then a third that have got that online welcome portal. So there's probably a lot more that we can start doing there to really add value to that process for your new starters. And I guess when you consider the implications of new employees looking for work elsewhere, the cost of replacing the average employee is still around about 16 to 20% of their annual salary, so it's still quite high. And if we look at the retention, we've got 69% of employees are more likely to stay with a company for 3 years if they experience great onboarding. Up to 20% of employee turnover happens in the first 45 days. And you've got organisations with a standard onboarding process experience 50% greater new hire retention. So lots to think about there, and again, open to questions. So as we go through this, please submit your questions and we'll have that session at the end to cover those off. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to talk through is engaging managers with hiring. So I guess the key to this is, again, technology. So by giving hiring managers access to technology, you're going to be streamlining their involvement within your recruitment process. And then naturally that's going to save them time, but it's also going to impact in other areas too. So if we start with the approval to recruit, so sometimes this can be quite tricky when we speak to organisations, and if there's no formal process and it's very manual, it can cause a few issues. So think about how you currently manage it. You might turn around and say that we've actually got multiple approvers dependent on where the job is going to be advertised, the department, what type of vacancy is, and so on. And then it's thinking, how do we track that process? Is it manual? Who has ownership of it? So there is technology out there that will support this process for you. And the concept is that as a hiring manager, being able to identify a need to recruit, they would be able to put a approval request through the system that would automate the responses to the relevant parties to provide their approval. And again, if we can do that via technology, it's just going to massively reduce the time it takes. And you've also got that audit trail as well. If we look at the next bit, the applicant tracking functionality and or assessor portal. So we kind of spoke through the concept of an ATS, but again, if you are managing all of your sort of applications manually through sort of emails and spreadsheets, then it's a huge workload. And we tend to find from a hiring manager perspective, usually access to the recruitment side of things can work sort of one of two ways. It tends to be the average. You've got the one where you want your hiring managers to actually look after all of the applications for the job that's specific for them, which means that they would have to go through the same process of reviewing CVs, obviously making decisions on shortlists, interview schedules and whatnot. And again, if that's manual, it's a huge workload. And through technology, when we spoke about the concept of an ATS, we can save a considerable amount of time with that sort of working for us. But then the other way could be, well, actually within sort of HR, within the recruitment teams, we want to manage that process, and we actually just want to put shortlisted candidates in front of our managers to provide some sort of opinion, some sort of rating score, and that's how we're going to build our final shortlist for interviews. So again, you've got software there that can work in multiple ways to cater for the way that you do things at the moment, and that's controlling permissions and what people can see, what they can't see, and the functionality that they've got the ability to manage. Okay, streamline the entire process for both candidates and managers. So the manager piece is quite straightforward. Technology is going to save them a considerable amount of time, but from the candidate perspective, usually we tend to find delays in the recruitment process is due to sort of administrative burdens. Again, the spreadsheets and sort of emails example, it is a huge workload. So by creating sort of a centralized process for your hiring managers and to be able to go in and start working out quite quickly which applications are sort of the better ones and which applicants are better suited for the role, they can get to their shortlisting quite quickly. And again, sort of invite to interview and progress with the rest of the recruitment process. So it's all about reacting quickly, just stressing again, it's a candidate-driven market, and it's looking at what we can do to really sort of quicken up that process. And I think the important thing to stress with the technology is that you're looking at real time. So as soon as an application comes through from the website, it's going to be in your technology, in your software to manage. So there's no time delays, which just reinforces that streamlined process to quicken everything up. You've got the piece about building stronger relationships with candidates from the very beginning. So again, this is another way to really improve the candidate experience and engagement, because they can be introduced to your hiring manager a lot quicker within the process, and that's only going to strengthen their experience, and that is a really great position to be in with any new starter. Okay, and then last but not least, you've got the accessibility. So traditionally, the recruitment sort of processes are only available during working hours, or it could be you need to be sitting at a desktop computer to access your emails, that type of thing. So because you've got technology now that usually is based in the cloud, as are all of these recruitment and HR systems, it's the ability to be able to access the system from wherever you are, as long as you've got an internet connection and a device to access via. So that means that productivity can increase, and again, you can be a lot quicker on reacting and responding to any sort of queries and applications, which is key. Okay, so that brings us on to the value of integrated systems. So integrated systems will provide you with a central source of truth. So that's quite a common thing that we say at Ciphr. We kind of see the concept of having one place that essentially you can manage everything. So it's the concept of, if you've got a HR system and an integrated recruitment system, you can click on an icon and it will take you straight where you need to go to manage the recruitment piece. Equally, it could be the onboarding integrated with the HR system, and obviously that's connected to recruitment. So it's creating, once again, that centralized process that's going to streamline everything that you do. If we start to look at some of the points here, we can break it down even further. So one benefit of integrated systems when we look at data transfer is that we're going to massively save time. So an example of that could be, we've got a new starter that has just accepted an offer, and we're going to actually transfer their data from the recruitment system to the HR system without any manual sort of effort. So that means that you're going to save time in that data duplication, but it's also going to reduce the risk on obviously that data being passed where it shouldn't be, so having it automatically sent across. Better accuracy, so we're not reliant on sort of human error. And the other thing to stress there is you're not duplicating the work for the new starter as well. So if they've already provided that, then you've captured it and you've got it, forever. Moving on from that, the ability to sort of centralize processes. So again, we're looking at recruitment, being able to centralize that, onboarding, centralize that, HR is centralized, but it's all part of one sort of integrated solution. So making it as efficient as possible. Okay. The big focus for streamlining the experience for your applicants is just all about, again, going back to that candidate-driven market, and just the quicker you can be to snap up these great candidates, the better ultimately, as it is quite a competitive market. And then from a usability perspective, just not bouncing around systems. So if I'm in the HR system and I want to get to recruitment, I don't have separate logins. So things like single sign-on are a great tool to make the flow between systems really easy. So there's a number of sort of points I'm going to read out to you now, which would be benefits of an integrated system. So obviously we spoke about some of these. So HR managers spend less time on administration. You've got that improved data security and integrity, so assisting compliance with GDPR requirements. You've got that single repository for all of your people data, less risk, a bit of a better insight to, I guess, the reporting and the analytics as we've got all this data flowing around with our integrated systems. And there's no need to kind of manually upload things separately or update information separately. So you've got the flexibility to, I guess, choose the right tools, but integrate them so they all work sort of as one together. So that is the, I guess, the end of the presentation, and next up is the Q&A session. So hopefully, Adrian, we've got some questions that have come through whilst we've been talking through these slides. So if anyone has got anything that they want to ask at this point, please fire them across, and we can get through to them one by one.
Yeah, we'll talk amongst ourselves, James, and give it a minute or two while no doubt our delegates are busy typing to see if we have got any questions. We haven't had any just yet, but that can be actually quite a good sign that they're very focused and tuned in to the material you're presenting. I was going to ask a question around sort of one of the key things when you look at things such as, was it about 81% of our delegates said that they send out a welcome pack and that. So I think actually one of the things for me, and certainly what we try and do here, and I would encourage it, I'd love to hear your thoughts, is to try and be a little bit unique, try and think outside the box a little bit, because you want that candidate experience to be a little bit personal. I mean, there's some wonderful software that we are, but hopefully both our companies have wonderful software. I'm sure we both make that claim, and they systemize and do some fantastic things to save you time. But then hopefully when you've saved the time, you can then apply a little bit of a personal touch to some of this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think probably there's a lot of personal experiences that everyone listening can sort of relate back to on how they've found some of these processes. But I think you're definitely right, Adrian. Having sort of that uniqueness about what you do is key. So, for example, when we were talking about the attraction piece and your careers page and standing out, that part of the process is almost a sales pitch. So it's almost looking for a new TV as an example, and you've got two shop windows. One is going to provide you with more information and look sort of more enticing than the other, so you're probably going to be more inclined to go into one shop as opposed to the next. So it's that concept of really sort of having that unique stamp about what you do, and promoting that culture is a key thing with those videos and whatnot, to really sort of show what you're all about. But then as you follow that process through to onboarding, yeah, definitely, you've got someone that's really excited to join you, and maybe there's some great content in these welcome packs that we're posting out or emailing, but could we be doing a bit more? So we've got 10% now, Adrian, where they said they invite the new starter to meet the team in person. I think that's fantastic. That's a really great thing. But then equally, we've got quite a large percentage, 33%, that actually have an online welcome portal. And I think a lot of what you're trying to achieve to be different, and the content you're trying to provide, as well as using it to collect some information before day one, that those sort of online onboarding tools are fantastic.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of them, and they really help make that first day not feel like your first day. But I think once again the key differentiator is the content that goes into it, is the thought and the creativity. We have got some questions now. So Rebecca's asked, what unique onboarding processes have stood out for people? So I don't know if there's any customers you've got or anything you do at Ciphr that comes to mind, James. If not, I know there's an example I can use of what we do here. But
yes,
I don't know if you have any yourself.
Adrian, I think for me, for me, it's more really trying to promote your culture and your values. So some companies, what I tend to find do quite well is promoting that culture. So when we spoke about things like your videos of social events, even think about where you're actually advertising your vacancies, like on social media and the type of content that you're putting out there. Think about promoting as much as you possibly can to do sort of the great culture that you have within your organisation. And I think that kind of goes to the onboarding side of things, when you can communicate that through, your onboarding tools that you can use. So yeah, for me, I'd probably say the videos, really focusing on that culture, and then that engagement piece, when accepting an offer and before their first day. But yeah, I'd love to hear your example, Adrian.
Oh, well, let me just, because you'll finish your presentation, let me just claim back. There's one thing that we do here, which is not that unique, but when we onboard people, we give them a little survey. We say, look, it'd be great, look, read these profiles of your team members, so they can read, like who each person is, see a picture, and they can see, favorite film and, hobbies and interests and this sort of things as well. So some work stuff around, what they do and where they sit in the team. And then obviously some other personal stuff that they're obviously happy to share. And then what we do, we ask them a few questions. So, can we have some information to share back to your new teammates? And, tell us some stuff that we don't know about you. What's, the thing, your biggest achievement, or we also ask them, what they do, or their hobbies and interests. And it's a bit sort of sly, but we do that partly for that reason, to share it with their new teammates, so that you can break the ice with someone a bit easier. But also when they tell us, I don't know, that they play golf, then we have a small little budget that we do, and when they arrive, they have the normal welcome pack you would get from most companies with little, the water bottle that's branded and the other things and stuff. But we also then get, a set of golf balls or something like that as a nice little, welcome to the company.
Yeah, I think that is a really great thing, Adrian. I think just being prepared for a new starter on their first day is a fantastic thing. Actually, having those things ready for them, having a desk set up. Again, it goes with that sort of seamless process from sort of the onboarding to walking through on their first day. So I'd definitely say those sort of things are great. And then
Sorry, go ahead, James. Sorry.
The pictures of their teammates, bios, talking about hobbies and interests, all of that sort of stuff takes anxiety out the first day. So it almost goes from, I don't know what to expect, to, well, actually, I know who I'm going to be meeting. I know what they're interested in. You could include pictures of the office, so I know what to expect when I'm there. So, for example, with our onboarding tool, you can do things like floor plans of the building. It could be travel advice, what local
where
meetings.
to eat lunch, what social sports and teams there are in the company.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's another one. I'll show you this. I'll just grab back the screen. This is a tool, little video tool. So I know that Bromford Housing, who are, I think they're number 4 in Glassdoor's best places to work. So they've got phenomenal employee engagement. I know the head of engagement at the business there, Andy, is someone actually we've had on a guest webinar before. But I know one of the tools, I don't know if he's still using it, but I think he does, is this Bonjoro tool, which is, you can do it for free. It's not very expensive. What it allows you to do is just to quickly record a personalized video and send it out. So he does that for every single new hire. Obviously, he's an outgoing person. He's quite happy, putting himself on a video, and I'm sure some hiring managers might not be. So this might fit some organizations and not others. Could be that, the HR director, he or she is very outgoing, and maybe they welcome every new hire to the business. There's little things you can do, little personal touches like that. I'm always thinking, like, how do you once you've got the basics in place, all the normal stuff, how do you go a little bit further? How do you wow the candidate a little bit and give them something that will really stand out? So there's lots of ideas. I think once you start sitting down and looking at this stuff, and I'd be very careful if you go through this as a process. There might be 5 or 6 of you in a room looking at the candidate experience from start to finish, getting out the post-it notes and looking at how you can improve it. Always think, I've been here for 20 years. It's my business. So I'm the worst person to be in. I've got loads of ideas, but there's a whole perspective that I don't have as to, I'm not a very nervous person either. I'm quite a confident, outgoing person. So you need some sort of representation from different personality types and people that are maybe have, joined other businesses or joined your business recently, so that they can represent, what that looks like out there. Because if you haven't been a candidate, or you haven't joined a new business in 20 years, in my case, it's a hard set of shoes to put yourself in.
Yeah, it is definitely, and I think that when we spoke about the 3 stages of the process, and we spoke about the people, those who own recruitment, and obviously the candidates, and then looking at the process and technology, just going back to that exercise about the process map, just build one of those, just kind of sit down with everyone who does own the recruitment process and just think about, do we actually have a starting point and then an end point, and it's quite consistent, the stages of our recruitment process. And once you've kind of defined what that is, you can then think about an engagement strategy that sits on top of that. And it's those things about, well, we know we probably want to acknowledge candidates when they apply, and we want to acknowledge any sort of rejection emails that are sent, but then equally we want to send updates throughout the recruitment process, and that could be based on the different stages. You could put something in there that's a specific task to communicate. Maybe send different packs and information out if you want to be a bit more savvy when you're dealing with candidates. So I'd definitely say just go back to basics, look at what you're doing now, formalise a process, put together an engagement plan, and then once you've got the basics, then look at what you could be doing that's a bit different.
Brilliant. So we've had some other questions. So Rebecca's also asked about probably a question that I can probably cover offline. She's asked about specific ATS systems, perhaps off-the-shelf products we could recommend. So what I'd suggest, Rebecca, is I'll email you after this, and if you want to let me know what sort of thing you're looking for, what would the key features be, what would the budget be, then I can point you in the right direction. Obviously, we do sell in that space, and but ours is not off the shelf, and neither is Ciphr. It's a highly configured system that's done by us.
Yeah, definitely.
But so we can definitely look over the differences to doing it yourself, which is hence the off the shelf, or getting a company that does it and deploys it for you and then trains you.
Absolutely, and I think I'd be careful with a kind of is there something that can do the job for me type scenario. I'd definitely say do that process map first. Look at what you want to achieve with your stages of recruitment and that engagement strategy, and then kind of look at a solution that can support that, or that can be configured to support that. because you'll tend to find once you've got the basics in place, you might then think, well, actually, we want to start doing a bit more that's different, and that's when you'll get the restrictions with certain software. So I definitely have the process map in place, the engagement strategy, and then sort of start investing in looking at different solutions.
Right, and we've got our first GDPR question, which we tend to get on most webinars these days, so well done, Anthony, for that. So in light of GDPR, how effective is it for most systems to keep candidate personal details confidential from those that are doing the shortlisting, as this has proved to be difficult in so-called integrated systems? So I know, like in our system, certainly information that hiring managers don't need to see, such as diversity information, but actually other information can be removed, and we have, I'm sure your system works as well like this, James, in regards to making anonymized applications if need be as well. So
Absolutely.
So I don't know, Anthony, you might need to send us a second question to see what in particular you're struggling with, because I'm not sure if we've answered it necessarily, because keeping the personal details confidential from the people shortlisting is actually fairly simple to do, whether it's full-on blind application or whether it's just keeping some information back that's just not pertinent, like diversity, for obvious reasons. So let us know as another question if there's anything more on that. I don't know if you want to cover that any further, James.
Oh, just second sort of what you said there, really, Adrian. So I guess there's going back to kind of the slides, and we spoke about the process of hiring managers being involved within recruitment. It goes back to, do we want them to just look at the shortlist and provide us with their sort of opinions? And if so, then there are systems out there that provide, like what you said there, almost like an assessor's portal that you can go into, and as a hiring manager, but you can choose to anonymise the actual data. So the whole kind of score and rating is just based on maybe experience, as an example. But yeah, if there is another question about maybe GDPR and how to manage candidate data that's stored in the system, I don't know whether we need to cover that off, but yeah, just...
Well, we've just had another GDPR question from Catherine. So can an ATS assist with subject access requests and deleting of data after retention periods expire? So I'll leave that one for you, James, and I'll cover it in a second.
Yeah, so for example, if we look at the solution that we offer, the way that it works in that instance is almost a form of automation. So when you look at an ATS as part of an applicant tracking software, typically you tend to find that there'll be some form of talent pool. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, it's basically a database that holds all of your candidates' information and that have applied for previous positions. The benefit of that is obviously you're able to go back to the talent pool and search for somebody with a certain skill set, so you can approach those individuals when you're about to post, and in the long run you'll be able to reduce your costs and time per hire. And that's, I guess, the bit where GDPR comes in, because essentially you are the controllers of your data and you need to make sure that you meet your obligations. So the way it works with our system is we would agree with you a time when you want to keep this information and when that's due to expire. And when data hits the period where it is due to expire, and then the system will automatically send emails to those applicants with almost voting buttons to ask if they're happy to for you to keep their information on file, or if they're not. Again, if they click yes, then it would reset the timeframes. If they click no or don't answer it, then it would automatically delete their information. So I know that we do something similar like that. I think EasyWeb do as well. But again,
ours sounds very similar. It seems like the sensible way of doing it. I've met customers who say they have they have a C when they haven't got a system. They're putting all the CVs that come in January in a folder, digital folder on File Explorer in January. And then a year later, they go and delete everything in that folder. It's like, do you know that works? But you have to be very, very fastidious around how you do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those where you want to try and automate it as much as you possibly can, but with the reassurance that that process is going to work, it's going to be accurate, to give you the peace of mind that you are managing that process correctly. So yeah, I'd definitely say a question to ask when you start to look at these type of systems. But yeah, ourselves at Ciphr and EasyWeb do that. So I would have thought other solutions would do that too.
Yeah. So Catherine, asking around subject access requests. Obviously having data in a system means that it's easier to go and find it. But obviously with a subject access request, you got to ask the question, how many other places have you got that data? So by having it in a system, for example, you can probably restrict hiring managers from being able to download it and being able to print it off and things like this, which does mean that, you don't have to worry about the hiring manager having it saved on their desktop or in their bag that they left on the tube or things like this. So it can, it's always the tube, isn't it? This time of year, everyone has a few little sherries before they go home and leaves their bag on the tube. So maybe not quite this time of year. I might be getting ahead of myself. But if you're interested, Catherine, we've actually done a GDPR recruitment audit report. So if you're interested, just let us know when we email you back these notes, and we can go through a series of questions with you. It takes about 15 minutes, and then we can give you a report on your GDPR. And one of the things we look at is subject access requests and requests to be deleted. And we show you the emails here that we've gone through of our data protection officer. We show you all the emails here that we use. So you can see our process, and you can edit. This report was all edited by a guy called John Curtis, who's an ex-employment lawyer who now runs a software business as well. So although I'm pretty good on GDPR. He's an absolute ninja on it. So it's good, solid advice. So if you have got concerns, that's probably not a bad little thing to do. So we do that obviously for free. So let us know if that's relevant, or anyone else listening along. But I'll stop pitching my reports. Let me ask you a new question, James. Is it possible to create different streams in an onboarding portal?
Yeah,
I guess what Catherine's asking again is, every time a candidate comes along, you need to onboard, you want that to be fairly slick, so you're not having to create a tailored thing from scratch every time.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. So, for example, we work with lots of organisations that are global or have multiple locations. And when you go back to that, what can we do differently? And we give some examples about meet the team, or it could be a floor plan, or it could be photos of where that person's going to be working, travel advice. All of these different things need to be tailored to be specific to the end user. So you can have different streams. I can't talk about other systems, but we can support different streams. So, for example, if I'm going to work in location A, it's going to represent the relevant information for location A. But then you could also go further than that, where it's based on the team that I'm going to be going into, and the information is different. And you might want to relate things about the services that you offer and what sort of the role of that team plays within the organisation. So, yes, you can do, and you can make that stream relevant to the end user. Absolutely.
Brilliant. We're just about to finish. We've got another question coming through. So Tim's asked, have you found it challenging to create a seamless and consistent experience for recruiters and candidates across the HR system and then the ATS as separate systems? So I'll let you answer that, James. That's a tough one.
So not really, no. So as long as you've got sort of the right infrastructure in place, then that process can be quite seamless. So if you look at the attraction side of things, so a candidate looks at your website and applies for a role, as long as you've got an easy application process that's nice and simple and engaging, then that's ultimately the start of it. And then what you can have then is a creation of what we call a candidate portal, which is a place that candidate can go to maybe track the progress of their application, look at communication, arrange interviews if they're invited, so they've got that connection to you. But then the idea is, once you've had them in for interview and you then offer them the position and it's accepted, you would then use the HR system and the integration to transfer that information across, complete the setup of that person's profile, which will then trigger access to the onboarding portal. So that process from a candidate perspective is very seamless, and it's all connected as is from the actual administrative perspective internally. So it can be quite seamless, but it depends on, I guess, what software you're using, the integration piece that you've got, and once again, the different stages of your recruitment and your engagement strategy.
Yeah, I'd agree completely. And I guess, Tim, the other thing to think around is, and this is just around consistency anyway, is we're only 65 staff big. I'm not sure how big your company is. The chances are it's a little bit bigger than that, or maybe a lot bigger than that. But you probably have some branding guidelines. We've only recently done ours, and tone of voice guidelines as well, so that, if two separate people both write two different adverts, or, the tone of voice that's used in your job advert is probably similar then to the tone of voice used in the emails in the recruitment process through to the onboarding process, just so people start to feel, that they know who the business is, and, you've got this authentic voice that you're authentic and consistent voice that you're you're seeing it from. And normally in my personal preference, and I've got a big chip on my shoulder about it, it needs to be, in my mind, less formal these days. Most organisations' tone of voice is just a bit too formal. It all depends on the organisation, because it is about their tone of voice. But in my mind, most people aim for the safe ground of formal and miss out on the chance to be a bit more warm and a bit more authentic. But that's just my personal view.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Cool, excellent, James. Look, thank you. I feel like I've jumped into these questions as much as you have, because we have guest webinars and people will be talking about. We had a great one the other day about balanced HR scorecard. Okay. Well outside of my expertise. So I didn't touch any of the questions. I was literally just farming them across. But yeah, some great questions, and I've loved getting involved in it as well. So it's been good. And thank you, James. Our first time joining up, so I'm sure we'll do something again. So let's stay in contact and work out what that will be. And if you're leaving the webinar now, guys, because we are just coming up to 2:30, as you exit, you'll have a chance to fill out a quick survey telling us what you thought of the session. That would be great if you could do that. We do feed that information on to James as well. And hopefully if there's relevant content there for you and you want to reach out to James, and that we're going to provide all their details. So you'll have plenty of opportunity to follow up on this and speak to Ciphr about anything else that's of interest. Obviously, I'll make a bit of a pitch. They do HR software, so there's a reminder for you. If you haven't worked it out, it does onboarding, it does everything. So bear that in mind if you're in that space. James, do you want to just let you sign off, and then we'll close down if that's cool?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so once again, thank you everyone for listening. Really appreciate it. And just second what Adrian said, if anyone wants any further advice or has any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. But thank you for listening.
All right, excellent, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, James.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye.